Welcome to our video lecture. Today we'll discuss the demand function. Okay. So before we begin, I'd just like to share the introduction of this chapter because it's quite funny. Wala lang, nakatawa lang ko. It says that psychologists, they use a technique called a word association. So for to learn more about their patients. So psychologists, when they utter certain words, like let's say color red, color yellow, morning, or sunrise, or sunset, their patients should say what's the first thing that comes to their mind. And if you say the word demand to an economist, what usually follows, what they usually reply is the word supply. Now, so supply and demand, they come together. They go together. Okay. So, supply and demand, they are called as the bread and butter of the economics. Okay. So, what is demand, by the way? Diba? Demand is defined as the willingness and ability to purchase. But the more precise meaning in economics is that demand is the willingness and ability to purchase different quantities of goods and services at a different price at a specific time. Okay? So, are you part of the demand if you want something? Okay? If you just want it, no, you're not part of the demand because you must be able to purchase. Okay? The question now is, are you part of the demand for skateboards if you are an 80-year-old billionaire? No, because you would be able to purchase it, of course, because you can afford, but you're not willing. Aanhin mo ang skateboard, you're an 80-year-old billionaire. So you're not part of the demand. And this demand, okay, they usually happen in markets. So what is this markets? No, this is the place where people buy and sell goods and services. So people come together in the market, and there is usually two sides, diba? The buying side and the selling side. The buying side is usually where the demand occurs. The selling side is where the supply occurs. So what are these markets? No? What can be considered markets? So we have here the swap, meet, okay? When you do trading, di ba? Internet shopping site, fast food restaurant, mall, okay? So these where trading occurs, where people buy and sell goods and services. So any place you purchase goods and services is considered a market. Now, um, what are the difference of goods and services? I think you know, diba? Good is tangible, while services is an intangible item you purchase, okay? Which includes a haircut, diba? Delivery, diba? Food Panda, considered a services. Now, quantity demanded, or, or QD. Okay, what is QD, or the quantity demanded? It is the number of units of a good purchase at a specific price. Yeah, the number of units of a good purchase at a specific price. So if CDs are 18, no, $18, okay, and si Lisa, he buys two, and Trevor buys one, how much is the quantity demanded? Of course, it's 3. No? The number of units of good purchase at the specific price. So, the quantity demanded is 3. Simple. So, what is the difference between the demand and the quantity demanded? Of course, demand is just the willingness and ability to buy, while the quantity demanded will always be presented with a number. Okay. So, we may consider Lisa and Trevor as both part of the demand, but the quantity demanded is 3. So, yun lang ang difference nila. Okay. So, now let's discuss the law of demand. Okay. Ano tong law of demand? It states that if the price of a good increases, then the quantity demanded decreases. Okay? So, kung magmahal ang certain item, okay, or services, the quantity demanded decreases. Okay? So, if the price of a good decreases, the quantity demanded increases. So, they go on in opposite direction. So, that is the law of demand. So, consumers are willing and able to purchase more at a lower price than at a higher price. But of course, okay, diba, lower price comes with issue, may come with an issue on quality, okay, but out of scope na ng ating discussion, no? But that's what the law of demand states. So, um, so the more utility, okay, we mentioned about utility in the previous chapter, diba? Utility is the usefulness and satisfaction um, of consumers. Okay, so the more utility you receive from the unit of good, the higher the price. Of course, the less utility you receive, the lower, no? The lower the price you are willing to pay for it. Okay? Of course, di ba? Value for money. So, the law of demand is just a simple concept. What about the law of diminishing marginal utility? Okay? Diminishing, marginal, then we have utility. So, let's itemize all these words. Diba? Diminishing meaning declining. Meaning an additional. Diba? Utility, which means the usefulness or satisfaction. So, how do we combine all these words? So, the law of diminishing marginal utility, it states that as a person consumes additional units of good, eventually the utility or satisfaction gain from each additional unit of that good will decrease. Okay? I will reiterate. As a person consumes additional units of good, eventually the satisfaction you will gain from it will decrease. Okay? So let's have an example. Um, it can be that you've been craving for a pizza, no? Ano bang sikat na pizza ngayon? Yung Pedricos. Masarap ang Pedricos. But so you purchase, no? And gusto mo pa, parang you're still craving for Pedricos. So you buy another one. Okay? And then, buy ka ulit kasi gusto mo pa. But mapansin mo, as you eat more, okay, of this Pedricos pizza, yung satisfaction mo, yung craving mo, nag-decrease, no? So that's it, no? As the law of diminishing marginal utility, okay, for each additional units, no? Additional units, meaning the marginal, okay, eventually the utility you will gain from it, or the satisfaction you gain from it will decrease. Okay. So let's have the demand schedule. Okay. Here, presented to this table is the demand schedule. We have a price of $4. Okay. And in units, it's only 1 unit. At a price of $3, we have 2 units. At a price of $2, we have 3 units. At a price of $1, we have 4 units. So they go on in opposite direction. So at $3, what is the quantity demanded? Of course, it's 2. At 1, we have 4. Okay. So look at this demand schedule. Is this an example of the law of demand? Of course, diba? If you look at the illustration, okay, presentation of law of demand, if the price increases, then the quantity demanded decreases. Okay, and what happened here? The price decreases, so the quantity demanded increases. It's just simple. So let's look at it through a demand curve. Let's illustrate this through a graph. Okay, so this is just a simple example. So with the 4 unit, so we have here in our y-axis, we have the price. Okay, in our x-axis, we have the quantity. So for the price of $4, we have the quantity demanded, okay, plotted here. Okay, and then we have the $3, okay, in which the demand is here. Then $2, the demand of quantity is in here. So ito yung demand curve. Okay. So what happens, no? Bakit mag-shift yung demand curve? Okay? So demand can change or shift. Okay? They can move. Okay? And if it shifts right, okay, if it goes right, meaning the demand increase. Okay? If it shifts to the right. What does it mean if the demand curve shifts to the left? Okay? It means that the demand decrease. Okay? So, madali na lang maintindihin. Because, when you look at it, diba, at a price of $1, okay, at a price of $1, okay, we can increase the quantity demanded. Okay? So, dahil nag-increase ang quantity demanded, meaning, yung demand, okay, it says, that's why it shifts to the right. Okay. But what would happen if you increase the price? Okay. Okay, the quantity demanded will the increase in price will result to a quantity demanded decrease. So that's why the demand curve shifts to the left. Okay. So, yun ang question. You know, bakit mag-shift? Okay. What causes the demand to shift? Okay. So, it can be there is a change in income. Okay. Yung purchasing power mo nagbago. That's why it caused a demand, okay, a shift in the demand curve. It can be the preferences, okay, the price of related goods, okay, or the number of buyers. Okay, so all of these affect the demand curve. Now, let's look at the changes in income. Okay, does having the ability to buy more mean you are willing to buy more? No. Does the ability to buy more mean you are willing to buy more? No, because it depends on the goods. Okay? So, with the normal good, okay, with the normal good, di ba? As we've state about the utility, with the normal good, the income increase, you buy more. But with the inferior good, okay, let's say the utility is lower, no? Although your income increases, you will buy less. With the neutral good, okay, neutral lang siya, okay, with the income increase, you still buy the same quantity, okay. So, with the changes, okay, with the normal good, what will happen to the demand curve? Okay, because you buy more, the demand curve shifts right. With the inferior good, it's because you buy less. Okay, it resulted to lesser satisfaction. The demand curve will shift to the left. With the neutral good, okay, the same satisfaction, the same utility, there is no shift. Okay. How about preference? Okay, so we've discussed about income. What about the preference? If preference increases for a good, then demand shifts to the right. Okay? If the preference decreases for a good, then the demand shifts to the left. Okay? So still, no, in connection to the utility, okay, preference is if it increases, okay, it shifts the curve to the right. The demand increases. But if the preference decreases, okay, so the quantity demanded decreases. The demand curve shifts to the left. Okay. How about the price of related goods? Okay, or what we call as substitute. Substitutes are the similar goods. Okay, a change in price of one affects the demand of the other. So, how does these substitutes, no, the prices of related goods, affect our demand curve? Okay. So, if the price of a good increases, what happens to the demand for its substitute? Okay. So, if the price of good increases, no, let's say, to make it simple, the price of a original good increases, okay, what happens to the demand for its substitute? Okay. Of course, it will cause an increase in demand. Masyadong mahal si original. Might as well go for a substitute. So, the demand curve will shift to the right. Okay. So, but what happens if the price of the good decreases? What happens to the substitute? Of course, since nagbaba na yung presyo ni original, okay, the demand of the substitute will decrease. So, it will cause a shift to the left. Okay. So, I hope we're clear there. How about the complements, the change in demand for complements? So, complements, they use, okay, that goods that are used together. One can't be used without the other. Maybe, to some, an example of complement is coffee and creamer. Diba? They considered it as a complement. Okay, so what will happen to the demand of with the complement? So if the price of a good increase, what happens to the demand of a complement? Okay, so of course, the demand, because there is an increase in price, demand will low. Okay, will go low, will decrease. Thus, our demand curve will shift to the left. Okay. Ano na lang, analogy. Madali lang ang lesson, but you have to think through when answering. You don't have to memorize it. You just have to understand. Okay? So next, what will happen um, if the price of the good decreases? What happens to the demand of the complement? Okay? It's because they go hand in hand. Kung nag-increase, nag-decrease ang price ni original, 'di ba, mag-increase ang demand niya. It goes with the complement as well. Mag-increase din ang demand ni complement because nag-lower ang price. So the demand of complementary good moves in the opposite direction as the change in the price of the other good. Okay. How about the change in the number of buyers? Okay. Paano yan? How does it affect the demand curve? If the number of people in an area increases, what happens to the demand? Okay. Of course, there are more people to buy, okay, who would be willing and able, willing and able to buy, then our demand shifts to the right. Okay, there is an increase in demand. But if the number of people in an area declines, of course, our demand, okay, dahil kaunti na lang ang willing and able to purchase, our demand curve shifts to the left. Okay. So, essentially, the change in demand causes a shift in the demand curve. A change in the quantity demanded, okay, causes a movement, okay, movement from one point to another but in the same curve. Okay. It's because nag-change lang naman si quantity demanded. Okay. So, still in the same curve. Okay, still in the same curve, but it shifts. So if you only change price, what changes? Okay. So if i-change mo daw si price, what changes? Okay. Of course, there will be a shift in quantity demanded. Diba? Because if there is an increase in price, again, there would be a lower, okay, decrease in quantity demanded. So a decrease in price, an increase in quantity demanded. So if you change price, quantity demanded changes. What causes the demand curve to shift? Okay, of course, it's the shift in the demand. And we have stated those factors. So what are those factors? So it can be the changes in income, preferences, related goods, number of buyers. If you only change the price, does the demand shift? Yun ang question. If if you change mo daw ang price, does demand shift? Okay. No. Because it is the change in quantity demanded. So as we stated, di ba, we have three prices. Okay. So it's a case-to-case basis. But it's usually the quantity demanded that will dictate a demand shift.